that you've been to some fireplaces. It's hard to carry on when you feel all alone. Now I've swung back down again. It's worse than it was before. If I hadn't seen such riches, I could live with being poor. Oh, sit down, oh, sit down, oh, sit down. Sit down next to me. Sit down, 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 down. In sympathy.
So good evening, everyone. Originally, I thought I was going to do all of the 5 goalkeepers in one show, but unfortunately, the show would be about 3 hours long, so I'm not going to do that. The amount of information that I've got and researched, it would just be an absolute nightmare. So tonight we're going to do my first. These are all goalkeepers that I've actually been lucky enough to see. The first of which was Bob Wilson, and an iconic goalkeeper, and we'll get into how he progressed. The other annoying thing is I had got a load of slides that I researched for the various goalkeepers, but going further in, I'd have got copyrighted. So I then decided I'd sign up to the this one particular gallery, and for a picture about the size of that, the Getty Images gallery, they wanted 150 quid. So it ain't happening. That's just not happening. But anyway, we'll get into this. Hope you're all enjoying the World Cup. It's looking very interesting as it progresses. But we're going to talk about Bob Wilson, first Arsenal goalkeeper I was ever lucky to see. He was born in Chesterfield, Derbyshire, middle of England, 30th October 1941. And he joined Arsenal from Wolverhampton Wanderers, where he had been playing as an amateur, and he joined in August 1963. And it was by a combination of courage, basically, intelligence and sheer hard work that to transform Bob Wilson from an enthusiastic but undistinguished rookie keeper into one of the first division's master custodians, basically. In fact, few who watched the blonde, he was a tall, blonde, curly-haired guy, bit lanky, very edgy performances between the gunners' posts in his first days. A lot of people didn't give him a lot of hope of making the grade, to be honest. I mean, the reports are he was not great. And it wasn't looking particularly favourable for him. Craig, nice to see you, my friend. Nice to see you. Don't expect many people in tonight, as it's World Cup, and Arsenal stuff at the moment is pretty dead, to be honest. But a lot of people didn't think he was actually ever going to make the grade to be an Arsenal top-level player. Most believe that as an eminently level-headed individual, he rapidly recognised the futility of his football ambitions and instead turned back to his teaching. He was a trained teacher, but those doubters had not reckoned with the strength of character of a man who was to become a dauntless cornerstone of Arsenal side, destined basically for glory. Now, this guy had been playing at an amateur level never had any true great training, was at Wolverhampton Wanderers, who at that point in time were in Division 2. So basically, Bob Wilson arrived at Highbury. He was still an amateur when he joined Arsenal, and he made his first league debut in August 1963 against Nottingham Forest. His game at this time basically consisted of very rough edges and but a very fierce commitment in equal measure. I mean, he got the reputation quite quickly. He'd like to get in and mix it up. But his unpaid efforts of playing for Arsenal prompted Arsenal to actually say, right, we're going to offer you professional terms. And he signed in spring 1964. Bear in mind, he only joined in August 63. That somebody actually saw in him that there's something there. And they decided, well, yeah, we're going to make you a professional. And they did. So they paid Wolverhampton Wanderers his amateur status fee of £5,500. And Bob Wilson became a professional goalkeeper at Arsenal Football Club. A lot of people were thinking, oh, no, what's this about? This is a bad move. Certainly the press that in his early days weren't really confident about him. I mean, this guy had been brought in to be a replacement for a certain iconic, supposedly, certain iconic goalkeeper. So the Bob Wilson success story was not to be an overnight success story. It just wasn't. In fact, there was a little immediate evidence that he'd ever come out of the fact that he would rise above the motley crew of goalkeepers that Arsenal had at the time. And the fact that Arsenal reportedly were looking for him to be a replacement for the iconic Jack Kelsey, an absolute iconic goalkeeper for Arsenal, was a very strange viewpoint. But again, somebody somewhere at Arsenal obviously saw something and decided, well, yeah, this guy, he can make it. He's going to do it. So, Craig, Jesus to undergo surgery and could be out for up to 7 months. Well, until I see the facts, mate, and a statement's actually made from Arsenal, I'm taking all of these comments on the chin at the moment because I'm seeing so many different reports. He could be out for 3 weeks. He could be out for 3 months. Could be out for 7 months. I mean, we'll get onto this, mate, in a little bit, shall we? About what Arsenal need to do right at this point in time. The fact he's going to be out, let's say he's going to be out for a month. That means he's going to be out for 2 months, because if he's out for a month, he's then got to recuperate. He's then got to get back into training and get fit. So that's 2 months minimum in my belief. So yeah, it doesn't look good, does it? It doesn't look good. So we'll get back to Bob Wilson. So even though he was unflailingly valiant, and he was an absolute, well, you wouldn't see it nowadays. His dives among the flailing feet of the opponents meant that quite often he, the day after, was absolutely, his shoulders, back, legs were covered in bruises. But he was prone to errors. Something that, the The fact he would dive in at the opposition's feet and get a kicking for it, because let's get it right. Back then, 60s, 70s football was a totally different game. Totally different game. If you ever get the option to go and watch some of the games on various channels of not just Arsenal, but other teams, in how the pitches were back then, heavy in winter, muddy, it was a totally different game. And you can actually see why today iconic players back in the 60s, 70s, Jeff Astle, name but one, West Bromwich Albion, excellent England player, suddenly got dementia, because those leather footballs in winter, they weighed a pound, right? Leather with the old laces on them. After the game, they could weigh £2 because those leathers, pigskin leather, would absorb all the water, mud. So you're trying to header that ball, it's going to cause you damage for sure. And you could tell the way the ball moved in those days. It was shocking stuff, to be honest. I remember as a kid, as a little kid at school playing in those conditions, and yeah, everybody as a kid used to avoid heading the ball because you knew it was going to hurt. So yeah, Bob Wilson was error prone, particularly notably for his inability to actually deal with a cross from free kicks and especially corners. Notably, the fact we will get onto in a little bit. And accordingly, he remained as an understudy and tutorship of Jim Furnell throughout the mid-60s. That was the Arsenal goalkeeper at the time. But anyone who closed the former England schoolboy international, and he was an international schoolboy, knew he'd not given up teaching at Loughborough College to mind and net in the Football Combination League. That was not what he wanted. He wanted to be in between the sticks at Arsenal. He wanted to be the number one. And his mindset was so strong. And this, he was a big, strong guy. And he wanted that senior position. And so basically, with his unshakable self-belief, he worked tirelessly to improve. And he was not afraid to seek advice from goalkeepers outside of the club, namely Gordon Banks and a certain Peter Shilton, two goalkeepers, Gordon Banks, international goalkeeper for England, Peter Shilton, international goalkeeper for England, backup player. And with their guidance, Bob Wilson used to go and train up at Stoke City on occasions with Gordon Banks. So he was learning from the best of the best at that point in time in English football. So he went on and he worked hard and his performances gradually improved until March 1968. He was given his claim to the senior slot. And he responded by being the inspirational last line of the defence the Gunners had lacked for like half a decade. They hadn't had a commanding, big, strong goalkeeper that was literally dive at opposition people's feet. He'd get kicked and he would get bruised, but he would go in and take one for the team. So he basically became very much almost like an early Tony Adams. He commanded his penalty box with aplomb. He absolutely knew what he wanted out of his defence, and he would give the midfield absolute, really give them abuse if anybody got through that defence. So his astuteness, that he could read that game, was in stark contrast to his more naive earlier days. He had basically improved to the level of a top Division 1 goalkeeper. Bob played a major part in the 69-70 Fairs Cup. Success, Arsenal's first ever European trophy win. And let's be honest, Arsenal have never been great in Europe. So that was their first trophy in the Fairs Cup, beating Anderlecht on the replay on the second leg at home. And I remember that night. It was a horrible, cold, foggy night. It's a horrible night. And but Bob Wilson was there, and his performance that night was outstanding. I can remember a couple of other players that night: Jules Graham, John Radford, amazing players. But anyway, Bob's performance prevented the chance to win their first double winning season from slipping away. He was the stopgap. Amongst one of his greatest admirers was Liverpool's great manager, the famous Bill Shankly. When Liverpool beat Arsenal Anfield in February 71, it was Bill Shankly that stated, if it wasn't for Bob Wilson in goal, Arsenal could have lost by 6-0. I can't comment. I never saw that game. Obviously, I wasn't there. But Arsenal and Liverpool were yet to meet again 3 months later at Wembley in the infamous FA Cup final. Arsenal haven't lifted the Division 1 title for the first time in 17 years. 17 years, not 18, like now. Were to now face a Liverpool team in absolute top form. The great game was a great start for Bob Wilson. Wasn't a great start for Bob Wilson, I meant to say. With his clanger early on, letting Steve Highway score at Bob Wilson's near post. Something a goalkeeper should never ever allow, but it is what it is. But the fact, what annoys me about this, I mean, I was fortunate enough to be, that was my first ever FA Cup final. And what annoys me slightly, yeah, it was a clanger. It was poor. It was very poor goalkeeping. But that was the beauty of Bob Wilson, I suppose. But he also made 2 unbelievable saves further on in the game to prevent Arsenal losing. And of course, they're all forgotten about. That is what I find rather annoying, to be honest. But that's football, isn't it, I suppose? It is what it is. Ed King, good to see you, my friend. Pepper G, big up Jez. How you doing, brother? I'm good, man. Hope you're well. Hope you are very well. look, and this World Cup continues on. Strange results. And Dean M, yo, Jez, good to see you, my friend. This won't be a long stream, obviously, because we're only talking about a certain one player, but it is what it is. So, although Bob Wilson was born in Chesterfield, Derbyshire, English born, his parentage allowed him to play for Scotland. And in 1971, he made 2 appearances to get his 2 caps for Scotland, and basically had a pretty short international career. Sadly, the following season, Arsenal were back again in the FA Cup final, playing Leeds United, and Leeds United then were a seriously strong team, along with Chelsea. And unfortunately, he missed that final due to injury, and the backup goalkeeper Barnett really wasn't up for the job, and Arsenal sadly lost 1-0. But Bob then returned the next season. I went on to play 2 more exemplary seasons for Arsenal before he basically decided to retire. Now, he retired early because he decided that his knees were, just couldn't have it anymore. And he wanted to retire. And he could reflect with pride on a career in which he had never revealed the style of the great Gordon Banks of the 70 World Cup, who made the absolutely ridiculously world-class save from Pele, in that game, Pele went up and shook Gordon Banks' hands. But the thing with Bob Wilson, he never really glamoured the high life. He rarely indulged in picture book exploits, and he earned the respect of some of the toughest players to play in English football at that time. Certain player, Billy Bremner, Eddie Giles, both iconic players from Leeds United, said basically he's one of the toughest goalkeepers they ever played against. Gary Sprake, who was the Leeds goalkeeper at the time, the Welsh international goalkeeper, said he'd never ever seen a stronger goalkeeper in his life. There you are. Gordon Banks put praise on Bob Wilson for the fact of his determination to improve and get better. And he said, Gordon Banks made the statement, he always strived to be better. And an iconic goalkeeper at the time from Manchester United, Alex Stepney, the first goalkeeper to score a goal direct from a drop kick, said, I've never seen a goalkeeper stronger and more determined. So he had the plaudits from some of the iconic players at the time. And he was iconic for Arsenal. All right, I mean, Arsenal he won trophies, but he made 308 performances for Arsenal, having won the FA Cup 70-71, Division 1 title 70-71, and Arsenal's first ever European trophy, the Fairs Cup. On his retirement, he decided to go into TV journalism, and once again, people said he looked shaky, but he proved them wrong, because the one thing I think you have to say about Bob Wilson, you have to take him as a very strong fighter, and he will basically prove you wrong. And it wasn't long. I think it was 76. Bob Wilson became the head coach at Arsenal as the goalkeeping coach. And basically, a job he excelled at, coached many, many young goalkeepers, Goalkeepers we're going to talk about in another part of the series. Yeah, and I really thought I was going to do all the 5 I put in the poll in one show, but no, it would just be too long, too boring. So I'm not doing. I decided no, I'm not doing it. I know how time spans are with people. Pepper G says, "Thank you, brother. I'm all right. Keep yourself together. Big up Morocco. They totally deserved it, don't you think, Jez?" I'm in awe, mate. I had Spain to win that 3-1. And what about the Panenka of Hakima? Well, only a world class right back we should get. Well, yep, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? But no, it won't happen. And that's a good point. Good point of talking about. So let's go back up to Craig. Made a great point. So we're looking like we're out with Jesus. Looks like he's down. He's out. He's gone. Probably, as you quite rightly say, out for the rest of the season. So we need to do something. And Edu needs to be doing something. Now, we know that we've seen pictures of Arteta out in America with the Cronkies. I just hope that was after the event of Jesus being cropped, because we all knew this was going to happen with one of our top players at some point in time. One of them was going to get cropped, and we needed to get back up in, because Edu and the board didn't do it in the summer transfer window. So now we're running light, and now we're in the crap. So at this point in time, we're now relying on Nketiah to run the line, be our top striker. Well, no, not good enough. Been saying it. That is the end of it. So unless, even on loan, Edu and Arteta and the rest of the board, even if it means getting a top class striker and paying the money to get them in on loan, we are top of the league, 5 points clear. And if you don't do the damage and get somebody in, then that's it. But the weak Arsenal fan base will say, "Oh well, he got injured. Oh well, we'll take 4th place." No, I won't, because if Arsenal end up 4th, 5th, come the end of this season, I will be massive Edu Arteta out. Simple as. Arsenal have to do the business right now, not in January. Now, get in there, do the fucking business, right? 18 years without a league trophy, the longest ever in this club's history. So get out there, talk to the agents, sort it out, and let's not piss about anymore, and prove that Arsenal can do the damage that they want. Seriously. Because otherwise I will be seriously pissed off. Pepper G says, what was his character like? Standard crazy keeper. Bob Wilson. I was lucky enough to meet him a few times. Lovely fella. Absolute nutcase. I can remember back in time, the amount of times he used to get booted in the head, and he would dive. Not like nowadays, where goalkeepers would parry a ball on their knees. He would dive at a player's feet. I remember a game, it was Peter Lorimer, Leeds player. He had one of the hardest shots in English football at the time. And he took the ball. He went to save it, but he missed it. It hit him on the head and knocked him square backwards. The ball hit the crossbar and he caught it. And as he caught it, I think it was Eddie Giles, Leeds player, went to try and kick the ball out of his hands, and obviously not allowed to do that. So Eddie Giles then skimmed his head, and so that's 2 major punishments to the head. And he just got up and was like that. And yeah, he was an awesome player, man. Awesome player, and did a great service for the club. Let's be honest, can't deny it. And it amazes me people like that don't actually get more recognition from the club. And this is the fact of the reason I tried to start this channel was to actually raise awareness some of the iconic players that we've actually had at this club that the club actually don't recognise. And I think it's shocking. And I'm going to wrap it up shortly, but I wish I could have done all the players, my goalkeepers, my iconic goalkeepers I've seen in one show, but I couldn't, because I just delved and found so much information for my lucky days of watching them, and so we'll move it from there. So anyway, go bounce it out, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. No views, basically, but if you do view it, smash the likes up, hit the subs. It is the time of year. Obviously, it's the World Cup, and so not a lot of people are interested in what's going on with Arsenal, and obviously the Arsenal history, sadly, in my view. But thanks for watching, people, and I will, for once, for change, if I can get this right, I think I've sussed it, actually do the outro. So take care, everybody. Enjoy the World Cup. Let's see where England go on the weekend with France, and take care. Enjoy.
I'm relieved to hear that you've been to some far places. It's hard to carry on when you feel all alone. Now I've swung back down again. It's worse than it was before. If I hadn't seen such riches